Welcome back to the Driveway Beers podcast with Mike and Alex. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please rate us on all the podcast platforms. Like, subscribe, comment, share wherever else you're listening, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to another episode. We appreciate you coming back. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, and share wherever you're listening to us on. If you are listening to us on Rumble or don't even have a Rumble account, please go to Rumble, create an account, log in, find our show, become a subscriber or follower or whatever they call it over there, and get us to 100 followers, and that way we can join their creator program. Want to thank Adam Chubbuck with Douglas Realty in Pasadena, Maryland. That's his team is Team Alpha Charlie. That's TAC. Website's tacmd.com. tacmd.com. That's tacmd.com. Go to the website, schedule an appointment with Adam if you're planning on doing anything with real estate. I'm still waiting. I got to get my appointment set with him to see what's coming up in the future, see if we can make a deal happen. I know Adam is not going to steer me in the wrong direction. So that's why I trust him to work with me on what I'm trying to get done. So go to tacmd.com, talk to Adam Chubbuck over at Douglas Realty in Pasadena, Maryland. He works in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia areas, if you're looking to do something at any one of those places. All right. This is going to be an interesting episode. We're going to talk about Elon's Big Ballz. The master stroke of some of the stuff this guy does. Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's a prick and a half. I won't say why. But it has to do with the fact that while I think that there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse and just some nonsensical government spending, which he does seem to be, uncovering, which I think is good. And I understand why he's cutting stuff over USAID. However, and I don't think those people are fired. I believe they're on administrative leave. But it seems like he's leading them to be fired, including people that are there just doing the job that they've been told to do.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that part is good. I've said this from day one. If you want to do a reduction in the federal government workforce, you've got 25% of the federal government workforce that is retirement eligible today. Mm-hmm. Simply give them 2 years on their service time, which is 1% per year on their pension. So for 2% of their salary, you get them out now.
Yeah.
You'll lose 20% of the federal workforce right there.
You just don't, and then you don't fill those positions again.
Correct. Yeah. You just don't backfill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is fine. I'm completely on board with that. The problem then becomes, okay, now you need to take the people in positions that you don't need, and then maybe you backfill the positions that are needed that way.
Yeah.
So you're not adding a person, but you are filling positions of need.
Yeah.
So for example, like if you need someone at Border Patrol, you could move someone from AID to Border Patrol for the person that retired.
Yeah.
And you just don't fill
because they're all on the
AID
same pay scales, and
for the most part,
yeah.
you can slot them in at approximately the same thing,
Yeah.
or you give them an extra $100. Like, generally, what happens is when you take another job in the same grade level, you get slotted at the next highest step.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like a $300, $400 raise.
Yeah.
So do that. Yeah. Again, I keep saying this. Stop taking a meat cleaver to it.
Yeah.
And maybe do some precision cutting.
Yeah.
Or do it in a way that people are going to be happy to do it.
Yeah.
Like giving someone an extra 2 years onto their pension, it's only 2% added to the government.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually less because you're getting their full salary off the books and transferring to a pension, which they were going to start collecting anyway.
Yep.
For people, cancel the pensions. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do that.
Well, that's the whole thing. That when people go after a pension is a financial instrument, mm-hmm. and you're investing in the pension fund, and so like IRA, individual retirement account, it's kind of like that, but everyone's in the same pool together. So Now, some pensions aren't solvent on their own and others, but a lot of them,
A lot of them are.
And you take them, so it's not the feds that are paying them anymore. It's the pension that's paying them. It's coming out of that pool of money. Mm-hmm. And that money's invested in the market and everything. And it's just a big, but you have these dopes that don't understand it. They just like to run their mouths and like, oh, he should lose his pension. Okay, so where's the due process in that? Right. So like, oh, because you screwed up here. Like, it reminds me of that officer in Florida. I forget the big school shooting, the name of the high school, but
Parkland?
Huh?
Was it Parkland?
Yeah, and the school
David Hogg one?
Yeah, that idiot. The deputy who was there, the school resource officer, didn't act when he should have. Like, we should take his pension away. Was he a coward? Yeah. Now, I'd like to see half the people run their mouths what they would do, because they probably, run and shit their pants.
Every single one would run.
Yeah. So I'm not defending the deputy's actions, but I would defend that you can't just, without due process, take his property from him. That's not how shit works. At least that's not how it shouldn't work. So to go and like, oh, kick them off their pensions too. Like, why? Because you're just jealous you don't have one. So stop talking. And I think, like, hey, if someone came to me and said, hey, I'll give you 2 steps and roll, like, bye-bye. There's a guy I'm in umpire school with. He's a Fed, and he was planning on retiring in September anyway. Yep. So he's going to take it.
So he took that fork in the road.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, I'm going to take it, and they're going to pay me out, and then then I'm retired.
So essentially 40,000 people took it.
Yeah.
The problem is that everyone's like, oh, see, it's working. No.
It's guys that it makes sense for them to take it.
It's the people that were going to retire.
Yeah.
Like there was a lady in an office that I know about. She took it, and she posted it last week.
Mm-hmm.
She was going to retire anyway.
Yeah.
So now she basically, instead of retiring in September, she retires now.
Yeah.
And gets paid through September.
Yeah.
So you didn't save anything.
No.
And it's like, oh, see, I told you. Harumph. It's like, no, man, you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And you could have done more if you would have done it smarter.
Yeah.
And I know
they've done it in the past.
For me to tell Elon Musk to do something smarter is almost an oxymoron.
It's like Teddy telling you to do something smarter.
Correct. Yeah. But in this instance, he didn't. He listened to a base of people and every time a Republican gets into office, they say, fire all the feds.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't realize what they do. And not all, don't get me wrong, you got the shrimp on the treadmill. I get that, which is actually, we're paying $500,000 for shrimp on a treadmill? No, it was really a study about shrimp migratory patterns, and it had to do with like the shrimping industry and all this other stuff. And don't get me wrong, do I think the federal government should fund it? No.
Yeah.
But they also weren't telling the whole truth about it.
Yeah.
And or like the 50 million in condoms to Gaza, which wasn't exactly the whole truth of it either.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it's funny. It's that a lot of people on the right are like, the people on the left are in a cult. Okay, well, you're believing this dumb shit. So maybe you're also in a cult.
Well, it's like a bunch of confirmation bias. They're just picking and choosing the things that back up their arguments. So they'll go and they'll look at USAID and they'll say, oh, look at this and this and this, and the transgender dance party in Bangladesh and all this other stuff. And do they spend money on that? Sure. Now, 2 things I think are happening. One is there's a line in, I think it's Independence Day. Mm. And Jeff Goldblum's dad, and they're standing there looking at the alien spaceship in this underground bunker, and how do they have the money to pay for this? And his dad's like, well, $300 for a hammer, $200 for a toilet seat. That's where they get the money. And I think a lot of that's going on too, where they're just hiding things and ridiculous things and using that money for other shit.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is, I listened to a podcast today. It was Mike Bentz, and he was talking about how a lot of this is just American Department of State soft power,
right?
Rather than going in and blowing somebody up, they'll influence things in other countries using, like, oh, if we can tip an election to this guy who we like, which I don't think is right either, but we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck by igniting the LGBTQ community in Bangladesh. So we're going to pay for a dance party in Bangladesh, and the price tag is exorbitant.
Right.
However, all that money is also probably going to fund other things too.
Yeah, and this is going to be controversial. Again, these are our opinions, no statement of facts, whatever. Represent ourselves, all that good garbage. And I'll preface this. I'll do this again. I did this 2 weeks ago. I'll preface this by saying this is me saying it.
Yeah.
This is Alex saying it. So there's always the question of how does a very small group of people get so much influence and power?
Yeah.
All right. I do think Democrats, and you can look at the polls, the Democrats have lost some key demographics, or at least have lost ground. For example, black men voted Republican 20%, which is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Even other minorities have started voting Republican. So, and I think they've even made inroads with under 30 or under 20s or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're losing some people, and it's kind of like marketing a little bit. Like you, in order to market yourself, you need people that are loud and proud, I'll say, right? Mm-hmm. You need people that can excite a crowd. Okay. I do think that when they were looking for people to fill in their ground game and people to do campaign work and do put in the work to get more voters, I do think the Democrats turned to the trans community and the drag community. Performers. These are performers. These are people that are they're exuberant. They're willing and excited to go do the work, right? But when you get political favors, you have to return them. And so some of the people who are the heads of those organizations then got higher positions within the DNC, within senators and Congress people's offices. And so then they were able to influence legislation, not only on the federal level, but at the state level.
Yep.
Which is why I think you saw some of these laws come into effect. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that they're popular within the general public.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that I've talked to since the election, and there are a lot of people who kind of were like me, where they almost turned into single issue voters. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about single issue voters a lot. Like for a lot of women, abortion is a single issue vote, right? If we vote for Democrat, I can't vote for the other side because they don't believe in abortion.
Yep.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what happened was you had something that kind of turned people's eyes away from it was affecting biological women and maybe even children at too young of an age. And there were a lot of people that said that was the tipping point for me. I couldn't vote for that. So you turn someone who wasn't probably normally a single issue voter and you turn them into one.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in your favor.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you turn someone into a single issue voter and you're not on the side that they're on, like it's like you're rolling the dice by going down that route, and then you're really losing people who just aren't down with that sort of thing. Yeah. So, and I think the mistake the Democrats made is they treated some of these voting groups as monoliths, and they were always going to have them, but they're not.
Right.
And then they also forgot that, like say, among black men, a lot of them are socially conservative in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Well,
some black women too.
Yeah. You go to the churches. I mean, the churches are huge.
Yeah.
And they're going every Sunday, and they're giving large portions of their income to these churches, and it's a big part of their lives. So to say, oh, well, we have them regardless because we're Democrats, and they always vote Democrat. Well, okay, you do to an extent, but then you say, wait, we're not down with that. So you can lose them.
And they look at the Republican Party, and let's face facts, it's not like it. There's not a whole lot of minority representation there. Now, it's growing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as like minority women, there isn't a bunch. Now there's more probably Latinos than black representatives for the Republican Party, but that is changing.
Yeah.
Especially within the younger ranks, which, if that kind of percolates through, in a few years, that number is only going to get worse for Democrats. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it'll play out, but I mean, that point going back to Mike Benz with the soft power, there are people that will say we shouldn't be doing this at all. Well, hold on now. Like, let's not cut our nose off to spite our face. Mm-hmm. There was a time when we did have less soft power in the world. And it kind of hurt us in the longer term. And that's why they kind of went back to creating more of that. Now, does that mean we should be funding as much as we are overseas? Probably not.
Right.
But for example, like Egypt is one of the largest recipients of U.S. money. Mm-hmm. But that was also part of the deal from, I think, the 80s with the Mideast peace accords.
Yeah.
In order for Egypt to recognize Israel. Like, they had to get some of those Middle Eastern countries to start recognizing Israel. And the U.S. and other Western countries have basically paid Egypt off to do that. Well, that's also led to other countries doing that. And that's soft power with money.
Yeah.
Now,
and the Chinese are doing it.
Yes.
They're making huge. The Chinese are making huge inroads in Africa.
What is it? Is it the Brick and Road?
Belt and Road.
The Belt and Road plant. Yeah.
And
and that was the thing with Panama.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, the Chinese aren't running the Panama Canal. Well, they were influencing it with money.
Yeah. And but there aren't Chinese military bases all over the world.
Yep.
The only country that has that is us.
Right.
But they go in and they build shit for these countries and they do things and be nice and now there's, it's like the mafia. Like, you're not getting it for free. They're going to come ask you for a favor later.
When I come in and ask you for a favor,
right,
you will not be able to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
But like when they go and they build infrastructure projects or something in sub-Saharan Africa, now they're making, whereas we would just go drop bombs on them. And I think that this whole, because if you listen to if you put on Fox News, you listen to some of the conservative commentators, get rid of all of it, and there's of course the comments with the freaking drogues and morons that are in the comment section, just get rid of it, fire them all. I get the America First agenda, I do. Mm-hmm. When you look at some of the money that's being spent overseas, but I look at the money being spent overseas as why the fuck are we giving a dime to the Ukraine effort? We're just leading to more Ukrainians getting blown up,
right?
And Russians at the same time.
Sure.
They would have surrendered, within months had we not put all kinds of. We're just grinding that population down. They're drafting, elderly men and I don't want to say mentally challenged people to go get blown up by the Russian army. There's gonna be no men left there.
I mean, they just mowed through some North Koreans.
Yeah.
Who apparently can't fight for shit.
Right.
Which, by the way, hey, if your soldiers can't fight, don't send them to a war where people figure out they can't fight.
Right.
Because they're just going to attack you. All right. Some people would say that the Ukrainian war would never have happened if we didn't overthrow the Ukrainian government, which we did. Mm-hmm. If we didn't start trying to cozy up to Ukraine to join NATO, which we did.
Right.
Because of the agreement that the U.S. had with Russia not to encroach on their border.
Yeah.
And if you added Ukraine to NATO, you are now on their border. Mm-hmm. It's funny. And look, I know I'm going to get labeled pro-Russian and all this shit. I'm not pro-Russia. I wasn't pro-communism. But I'm also saying maybe they're not completely the bad guy in all this.
Yeah.
Essentially what they're doing is they're pushing into ethnically Russian regions to protect the interior of Russia in the case that Ukraine becomes part of NATO.
Yeah.
Because once Ukraine becomes part of NATO, NATO military supplies end up in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Including radar, missiles, all of that shit encroaches on Russia's border. So if that means Russia has to extend their border to protect the interior of Russia, that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
It would never have happened if we didn't overthrow the Ukrainian government and try to involve Ukraine in NATO.
Yeah.
If we would have just not done shit,
Right.
they wouldn't have done shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the distrust goes all the way back to World War II.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, NATO existed to counter the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact countries. That's why NATO exists. Well, once the Soviet Union crumbled, what was the purpose of NATO? But, it exists. Then it just becomes the anti-Russia organization. And I think when the Soviet Union crumbled back then, they should have brought the Russians into the fold.
That's what I think they should have done.
Said, hey, the evil communist empire's done. Now come over here. Let's party. Let's have fun. Let's put McDonald's. And they started doing it a little bit, but it never went full on. But I think that distrust just because you still had all those back in the 80s. You still had the World War II generation that was running things, and now you have the boomers that are running things. And it's like just this perpetual, and a lot of people are making money off of it because in order to sell weapons, you need a boogeyman somewhere. And the Russians are a good boogeyman because they have a lot of stuff, and we can say how evil they are. And if you look at movies, like I just watched John Wick for the first time, Russian mafia.
Yeah.
That's what they were. It's like they're always the Russian bad guys. It's not, for a while it was always some Middle Eastern bad guy. Now it's Russian bad guys again.
Yeah, and that would have been the perfect time to bring them in the fold right after the 80s. Especially if you would have tried to pump money into their economy to kind of make them healthier.
Yep.
Because you could have kind of turned to China and made them the enemy. Because Russia and China aren't exactly friends.
No.
Right now, they're doing the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
And people don't know this, but China and Russia actually have a land dispute in the northeast corner of China and the southwest corner of Russia.
Yeah.
Southeast corner of Russia.
And anyone who's seen Red Dawn knows that during that invasion, the Europeans didn't help us out. It was the Chinese that helped us.
Right. Well, and so essentially there's a piece of land over there that essentially gave Russia access to the Pacific Ocean. That wasn't originally there, but Russia after World War II was pretty weak. Mm-hmm. In fact, they were never much of a power anyway because it was Japan that kind of had taken over parts of China. Well, when we defeated Japan, China really didn't have much of an army to speak of.
And then they immediately got involved in a civil war.
Right. And so Russia, seeing the opportunity to expand to the Pacific Ocean, they actually took over part of Russian land. Or a part of Chinese land, and they still have it to this day.
Yeah.
And China is still very upset about it, basically saying, hey, you took advantage of a situation. That's really our land. And so they're not exactly friends.
Right.
If in the 80s or in the 90s, that could have gone a completely different way for the U.S. if they would have brought Russia back into the fold. But they didn't.
Yeah.
They essentially needed a boogeyman, and China wasn't a big enough boogeyman back then. They're not the economic power they are now. Mm-hmm. And the funny part of it is we did all of that Cold War stuff to Russia to kill their economy, and their economy is still garbage right now.
Yeah.
They're no threat to anybody other than the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Now that's a big threat, right? But militarily, I mean, think about it. They're having a hard time taking out a small country like Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Ukraine's got some U.S. weapons, but it's not like they got F-18s and F-16s flying over there and doing... They don't have the full might.
Yeah.
So, what does that tell you about Russia's military capability right now? Mm-hmm. It's not great.
Yeah.
So...
And they're using a lot of conscripts and stuff like that. And they did the same thing in the Second World War. Mm-hmm. But the Second World War, that was an existential threat to, everyone was they had women fighting. They were just pretty much they were rolling tanks directly off the assembly line into battle because the battle was right there. Yep. So that was an existential threat to them. It was either if they didn't because the Nazis considered them subhuman. So if they didn't fight and win that war, they were not going to exist anymore. It's not kind of the same. It's not really the same deal down in Ukraine,
right?
Because the Ukrainians themselves, Ukrainians,
the craniums.
Oh boy. And it's during the day, so we're not drinking bourbon.
This is a factual show. Only facts.
Yeah.
No feelings whatsoever.
But the Ukrainians, don't pose an existential threat to the Russians.
No.
Now, the NATO behind it does.
Correct.
But is there a reason for NATO to exist?
I would say, look, any treaty organization, sure. I mean, the United States and most of Europe align, like, religiously, value-wise. It's very similar in that regard. I mean, shoot, a lot of our country is made up of, people that left Europe.
Right.
I mean, don't be wrong. It's made up of a lot of people from everywhere, but, the first waves of immigrants were from Europe.
Yeah.
And to an extent Africa, but that was a bad thing,
Yeah.
Not saying that was good.
Right. But they're here. They got here, so.
Yeah.
And
then you had like some Chinese during the gold rush
Yeah.
and whatnot over in San Francisco and whatnot. But for the most part, we had a lot of Europeans, a lot of the Irish, Italians, the Polish, English were already here.
Yeah.
I mean, they were one of the first ones. And then, so the peoples line up, and so it makes sense to have a treaty organization.
Yeah, I think it made more sense after World War II.
Sure.
But, for all intents and purposes, Russia is a Western nation. It's.
I mean, I would, if Russia hadn't been a communist nation during World War II, you would never have had that East and West Germany thing.
Yeah,
it would have been one group.
Yeah,
at that time, but
well, Truman actually said during World War II, like, when I think he was a senator, and they said, "Well, should we get involved?" Well, on what side? Well, he said, "Well, as long as communists are killing Nazis, we're winning either way. So let it go on."
Right.
And I think that attitude prevailed. Like, let them just grind each other to pieces.
And you look at our relationship with China today. I mean, China is technically a communist country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as tight of a communist country as it used to be, but it's a communist country, and it's our biggest trading partner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we really that anti-communism anymore?
As long as someone's making money off of it, no one cares.
Correct.
And no one was making money off the Russians.
Yeah.
But it was a huge market that could have been tapped into. Imagine a Russia more closely allied with the West today than, like, it would be the whole Ukraine thing pushed Russia and China into the same bed. Then India went with them.
Did they though?
But they're kind of like using the ruble and stuff like that to.
Right.
But you have that two huge populations, massive land areas, huge energy reserves on the Russian side. The Chinese don't have the energy that the Russians do. So it's like, no, we should have been keeping all that. But then we blow up their pipeline. Like
one of them, sure. I'm sure something happened and
destroy the German economy doing it. Like,
and that Indian thing is weird too, for whatever reason. So I think it was back in the 70s or 80s. India and Pakistan, they both experimented with nuclear weapons. Like they both were testing nuclear weapons, and for whatever reason, the U.S. sided with Pakistan and really struck down India for whatever reason, which is strange because I feel like in this country we have closer relations to Indian Americans than we do with Pakistan.
I know a lot more people from India.
Yes.
Good friends of mine from India than I do from Pakistan.
Yeah, and so I
know like a couple Pakistanis. I know a bunch of Indians.
Right. Now, I know a lot of Pakistanis are in Britain.
Yeah.
But I feel like in this country, like I just never understood that. Like, why did they come down harder on one than the other? And it could have been a military issue. I don't know. Who knows why the powers that be did what they did back then, or decided who got the worst of it and who got, who became friendlier, who versus. And maybe the Pakistanis did something or greased the wheels a little bit better. Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, if you're pushing two of the largest countries by population together, with another one that really hates your guts because you destroyed their economy.
Yeah.
That's not a great recipe.
Right.
So, and all that to say, and now we have Elon Musk and a guy named Big Ballz.
Taking a cleaver to the federal government.
Yeah, just hacking it up.
Yeah.
Where I think there was a better way to do it. I mean, even Donald Trump the other day came out and said he wants to see a lot of federal employees let go. Mm. I don't think people really understand all of what federal employees do. Most of them are just basically have to administer the money that the federal government has.
Yeah.
You have to have someone watching over it. Now, apparently nobody was watching over the Pentagon budget, and they haven't passed an audit in years.
Yeah.
But eventually I think they're going to get to that. Right now, it seems like they're getting to all of the headline grabbing stuff.
Yeah.
Like the shrimp on a treadmill, right? Or
the ridiculous stuff.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, if you're going to name your study that, yeah, you've opened yourself up to the scrutiny, okay? And like, if you're funding transgender parties, well, guess what? The word transgender is a hot button issue right now, so that's probably gone too. Ebbs and flows happens, right? But then there was the incident where there was that shelter and something grant program, all right? So basically, there were 4 people at FEMA that got fired. One of which was the CFO. Mm-hmm. The other 2 were program analysts for a grant program. And the other one was what they call a grant management specialist. And this is all part of the New York Post that reported this. Which is essentially the financial side of the grants. So the person that approves the payment. These are probably GS 12s, maybe 11s. They're not high up.
Yeah.
When they approved the payment, the freeze on payments was lifted by a judge. There was a stay on it. So apparently funds were unfrozen again. And they approved the $59 million payment to the hotels in New York City. Now, that's what the money was designated for. It was appropriated by Congress through that grant program for that reason. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like these people said, "Oh, we're gonna fuck Trump over, and we're gonna send the money to this hotel, and he's not even gonna know."
Yeah.
No, they were just doing their job.
Yeah.
And then people were like, and even Elon Musk is in there going, "Oh, it's criminal. They're and then people are saying they're stealing money from the government. Like, no, they literally did their job.
Yeah.
Unless there's some more information that's going to come out. And the CFO didn't have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. Like when those people go to process a payment, they click a button and the money gets sent.
Yeah. Through
an ACH withdrawal. The CFO doesn't approve that.
Right.
She doesn't approve every single payment.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. She may be a Democrat. She may be someone who, or whatever. But it wasn't like she clicked the button. And it wasn't like anyone was violating the law. And in fact, and then people would just want to blame it on FEMA.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a FEMA grant. Mm-hmm. It was a grant it was the Customs and Border Patrol grant. FEMA administers grants within DHS because they have a grant-making office.
Yeah.
And they have a grant administrative office. So rather than standing up a brand new office in CBP,
for every single person.
Correct.
Or for every single entity.
Right. So FEMA administers grants for TSA, they administer grants for CBP, they administer grants for any organization
that falls at DHS.
Right. They even administer a grant in partnership with the Coast Guard. It's not, so yes, it might be part of a FEMA appropriation, but it's in partnership with another organization under DHS.
Yeah.
You basically just fired the people doing their job to click the buttons and make sure basically keeping an eye on the money. That's all they did.
Yeah.
And they're hailing it like it's some, they found the fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah. There's the deep state going against Trump.
Like, if you want to be pissed off that money was allocated for that reason, be mad at Congress.
Yeah.
The people that were doing the job were just doing the job. The funding freeze was off because of a judge ruling.
Yeah.
You can't, like, that's another thing. Like, if the person at FEMA if those 3 people didn't do the job, you would have called them lazy federal workers for not doing the job. Mm-hmm. When they do the job, you chastise them for doing the job.
Yeah.
Because Trump didn't like it.
Right.
No, well, unfortunately, Trump has to deal with rules, laws, and regulations.
Yeah.
So and I've said this before, if the MAGA America First people keep going like this, well, you better do all your work in 2 years. Yeah. And you better make sure it's not reversible, because it's going to swing back the other fucking way.
Yeah. It always swings back harder.
Well, they never have foresight.
Yeah.
Don't be assholes.
Yeah.
That's all you... Like, I get it. You're mad. You're angry. Someone fucked you over. But if you have any foresight and you still want to have control of the Senate and the House in 2 years so you can keep doing work, you better knock some of this shit off. Elon's got to stop tweeting.
Yeah.
They got to stop. You got to stop doing the bullshit. Do the popular shit.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of the transgender thing in fucking Botswana. Fine. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Eliminate the shrimp on the treadmills thing.
Right.
Okay.
Get rid of cheese research for the blind.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's like, because those are easy to win the public opinion. It's like when they interviewed the guy on government, like some organization was government policy and oversight, and the guy's blind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just funny.
Yeah.
The guy who's supposed to be the guy who's got a company that deals with government oversight can't see. Okay. I mean, look, I get it.
Yeah. Does he physically need to see? No.
No, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Right? That's a meme.
Yeah.
Win the meme wars.
Right.
But when you do dumb shit, like putting low-level workers out of work because 3% of MAGA thinks half of the federal government should be unemployed. Okay, boss. Let's do that. And you want to know what's going to happen? You're going to tank the economy. Mm-hmm. It's 1 million workers.
Yeah,
it's half.
What always stop going after the workers? You want to change the federal workforce? There's 435 federal employees, I think, that we all know that work at in the Capitol building that we can probably shit can right now and replace them. You have to replace them, but there's 435 of them. The blame never goes where it should go. It goes to the working stiff.
Right.
And it's like always on the little guy, never on the big, like what made all this stuff come into play. And then when you're just blindly taking a cleaver and chopping things because it gets clicks and likes, like that all this stuff is nuanced. There's all kinds of things going on that if you don't peel that onion back a couple layers to really understand, like, what kind of damage are you doing?
And then you've got the part of it where they're like, oh, yeah, fire him, and I don't care if the DC economy tanks. Okay, it's not just there.
Yeah.
Most of the federal workforce doesn't work in DC. So the plumber that wants to fire all these federal workers, well, guess what? Your customer is probably a federal worker.
Yeah.
They're the one paying you. Where do you think their money's going to come from?
Yeah.
To pay you. Eventually, it will trickle down. That's real trickle-down economics, and it will. The other part of it is, if you just let people retire early, they were going to retire anyway.
Yeah.
They still have the pension to pay, and you're not really pulling a shit ton of money out of the economy that way.
Yeah, and they've done that before. My aunt and uncle both worked for Social Security, and I want to say in the early 2000s, late 90s, they were trying to do a federal workforce reduction, so they offered a bunch of early retirements, and they took it.
Oh, yeah.
They're miserable, cubicle dwellers, and they're like, I'm out. And my uncle went to go get a job with UPS. I think my aunt went back, like, as a retiree hire. Yeah. But then he worked at a liquor store. He worked at a golf. Like, he just did stuff he wanted to do, and it's do that again. They had a bunch of people jump on that.
Well, then you've also got the other part of it where, right now, the federal workforce is at the lowest percentage of the U.S. population than it's ever been. Like, that's significant. And if you move some of these functions back to the state, you essentially have to move the employees back to the state budgets.
Yeah.
Someone still has to do the work. You're not going to just tack on more and more work onto another person.
Yeah. And one of the questions I have is, why is it always like everything is a zero-sum black or white, it is it or it isn't type of deal. Like, other Department of Education is one that's like, get rid of it. Okay, I think there are some arguments to it, but let's look at what it does and what it's supposed to do, and is it doing that job? Because you can point to, like, since the inception of the Department of Education, all the test scores and stuff that they've met has gone down.
Yep.
So are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
No.
One of the big things they do is manage federal student aid. Well, the reason college is so expensive is because people are just guaranteed to get these loans.
Yep. And you can't discharge it in a bankruptcy.
Yeah. So, like, but they're not even giving the money out. It's other bankers, financials. They're just the middleman. Mm-hmm. So if you were to tie, if you want to go major in theater at NYU, if it was based, if you got rid of the Department of Education guaranteeing these loans, and a loan officer actually had to look at what are your chances of being able to repay this loan, you're not getting that. Now, if you want to go be a nurse, oh yeah, you'd probably be getting that at like 0%, because you're going to get that degree and actually be able to repay this back. But, once you're the theater major at NYU and then coming out and working as a barista later in HR somewhere, that interest rate gets higher. That's going to, not as many people will do it, and then the cost of that education will come down.
For anyone that, just go look at a college campus. Look at the amount of construction and new buildings going on.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the endowment funds at some of these colleges. Mm-hmm. The fact that tuition has gone up as much as it has is in my opinion, one of the biggest financial scandals in this country.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it is. $140,000, $150,000, $160,000 for four-year education is on the low end now.
Yeah.
Unless you go to like some state school.
Yeah.
But state school in Maryland? Dude, I think University of Maryland for in college is like, isn't it like $20,000?
Yeah, and you're probably not going to be able to live on campus.
No,
because it's all full of kids from New York and New Jersey.
So if you go to like a smaller school, I think Salisbury's less expensive.
Mm-hmm. Frostburg is, UMBC,
something like that. But that I remember when I lived in New York, a state school was like $7,000.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it. But I mean, don't get me wrong. 20 years ago, I get it, inflation, all this other shit. But like 1 year tuition at Harvard's like $80,000.
Mm-hmm. And I've said it before. The endowment, the interest on the endowment at Princeton covers all of their operating expenses. Everyone can go to school there for free.
But now the problem is you got all this construction going on, mm-hmm. and I get it. You want to improve the school. You got teachers making $200,000 something a year. Like, for teaching like 2 days a week?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You teach a Tuesday, Thursday class, you're getting paid $200,000 a year?
Well, the rest of the time you're doing research.
Then you don't have to work in the summertime? You're not teaching summer school?
Yeah. So
let me get it. You work 2 days a week. Maybe 3 because you got some office hours. $300,000?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're some expert in the field?
Yeah.
You're telling me that education is so much better than UMass?
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But then you got the fact that people pay it.
Mm-hmm.
Stop paying it.
Yeah, well, they want the status.
And don't get me wrong, you probably get a better job, but is it $60,000 better job per year? I mean, if you go to UMass at $20,000
mm-hmm.
versus Harvard at $80,000, that's $60,000 difference. Times 4, $240,000 difference.
Yeah.
Are you going to make $240,000 difference over the course of your career? Because you worked at Harvard?
Yeah.
Because you went to and you got a teaching degree? You got some people getting a teaching degree from Harvard.
Yeah.
Going to teach elementary school. I'm sorry. You're not going to make that. You could have gone to UMass.
Yeah, there's no return. There's no return on investment in teaching from going to UMass either.
But that doesn't. And so the fact to me that Harvard even offers a teaching degree is a farce to me. No, the only degree, if you're going to pay those Harvard prices, you either need to be a doctor, lawyer, or something else that makes a shit ton more money.
They do it to get into the alumni networks and clubs and all the
But if you're
nonsense.
going to be an elementary school teacher, what do you need to be in that club for?
Yeah.
You don't.
Status, so your parents can brag about you went to Harvard.
So you can marry someone?
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, if a guy, I got to find the smartest girl there.
Yeah.
Find the smartest girl doctor.
Yeah.
So I don't have to, I'll be a kept man.
The smartest girl doctor with the lowest self-esteem.
Right.
Where are you at?
Give me all her money so I can live comfortably. I'll be a house husband.
Yeah.
I got no problems with that. Let's do that. Let's get rid of that patriarchy.
Yeah.
Let's start doing that matriarchy. Let's go. Let me get that. Let me get that extra big closet that I want.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple man caves for me. Yeah, I do hope they get rid of a lot of money. Like they were even saying like the fraud, like a lot of the fraud, waste, and abuse out of like Social Security. And of course, what do Democrats do? Oh, they're going to cut your Social Security. Yeah. No, they're fucking not. And this is where Democrats lose everybody. It's like you've lied for so long, and your response to that is to double down on more lies.
Yeah.
You need to get people back that thought you were lying to them.
Yeah.
You're not just trying to keep the ones that are still believing the lies. You need to now convince people that you aren't just full of shit.
Right.
To get those people back. Otherwise, you're not winning elections.
No. And they've got their bench. They got no bench.
None.
They've got no rising. It's just a bunch of shrill people whining. And what were they doing? They were outside of USAID singing.
Yes.
Or like
they were harassing some dude at the standing guard at the front door.
Yeah.
Because he had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Whereas Republicans, you got DeSantis down in Florida. Byron Donalds is probably going to be the next governor of Florida to take his place. You got Greg Abbott in Texas. You got quite a bit of a bench going on, and then a whole bunch of more unlikable people.
Right.
But that are never going to go to the top.
Those are your uniparty Mitch McConnells and Lindsey Grahams and
I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised McConnell hasn't died.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude's fallen 16 times in the last year.
Those memes were funny, like when he froze, and you'd see like the buffer circle.
Who are the family members that are not saying, okay, it's time to stop?
Oh, well, just like with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Like, come on, I felt bad for the guy. You know, like just watching him out there, like you're putting and Joe Biden's out there, they want the power.
It just shows, like, some of these, they just don't care about these people. Like you're just torturing them.
Yeah.
It was almost like when Fetterman ran for Senate. Now, he's actually ended up being a fairly reasonable individual. Yeah. But during the campaign, when he had just gone through the stroke.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, the end result is a common sense Democrat. We get that. And that's probably
nice.
It's probably a nice thing.
A unicorn.
But damn.
Yeah.
They made him go through that while he was recovering from a stroke.
Yeah. And how bad was Dr. Oz as a candidate if he couldn't beat that guy? That'd be like if we were playing on a 3-on-3 tournament and it was our, we'll grab another dad and our youngest kids and we lost to them. Like legit lost. Yeah. Like didn't allow them to win.
Right.
Like we're playing with a 10-foot rim and we somehow managed to lose to them. Like how bad did we play to lose that? We're not good basketball players either, but how the hell did we lose to them?
Might as well just put up Shane Gillis. Yeah. That would have worked out well.
It'd be funnier.
It would have. Can you imagine if he ran?
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Bud Light trying to buy their way back into Joe Whiteman.
Oh, yeah, with the...
So Gillis is going on like all these podcasts and shows. And he brings a can of Bud Light with him on every show. And he did that commercial with Bud Light.
Yeah.
With Post Malone. It's like they are pushing hard to get back Joe Collar Blue Guy.
So I hated Bud Light before all the... Who was that person that was the...
Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah. I hate it. Bud Light is piss water. I can't stand it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't like it anyway. And then that stuff didn't change my opinion of it. Like, had Miller done it, I'd still be swilling Miller Lights on it. It just wasn't... I don't like Bud Light.
I tell you what, if Miller and Coors weren't so afraid, they would have leaned into that shit.
Oh yeah,
and took away more Bud Light share than you could have. It would have been like an athlete with women around him.
Oh sure,
you couldn't fend him off with a stick, right? It's like they should have done the commercials that Bud Light's doing now with Miller Lite, and Bud Light would have ceased to exist.
Yeah.
They just didn't. They didn't strike while the iron was hot.
Yeah, and the Bud Light commercials were before they did all that, the Dylan Mulvaney stuff. Like I still hated the beer, but they were funny,
right?
You know, and they're trying to get back. Like during the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was driving around that Gator that had the trailer full of Bud Lights, and he's like I'm like, okay. I
mean, think about it. They've gotten Post Malone, Shane Gillis, Peyton Manning. Like they are trying to load up the roster of just white dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Post Malone's got a whole bunch of face tattoos, so I don't know how well he's doing with average white guy. But funny thing is though, he makes good commercials. So like,
yeah,
I mean, and he's kind of ventured into the country scene. Mm-hmm. Like he's trying to lean into average white guy too. Yeah, because the difference is average white guy spends money.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people don't realize. Average white guy spends money, and there's a lot of them. Yeah, there's a whole lot of average white dudes out there.
Yeah,
and they spend money on shit.
Yep.
And it's real easy for them to grab that 30 rack of Miller Lite rather than the 30 rack of Bud Light.
Yeah.
And they will consciously do it.
Yeah.
Just don't underestimate the quiet pettiness of average white man. Yeah. Trust me, I know, because I am one.
Well, I wasn't grabbing Bud Light anyway because it tastes like crap.
Well, that too.
And it gives me the shits. But
I mean, if they would have said, if Bud Light would have said, we hate large, balding white men, you'd be like, all right, well, or if Miller Lite did it, you'd be like, well, I guess I'm drinking Coors Light now.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'm getting these Busch lattes.
We try and keep telling people, don't sleep on that Busch latte.
No, we did it for the
right.
cheap beer fest.
Yeah, and then we even pushed it up a category.
Yeah.
And said we got to try it against the real shit.
Yeah.
We still haven't done it yet.
It beat hams.
I still have that in my fridge. 2 years later.
Yeah, it'll probably stay there.
It is going to. Yeah, it will remain there. I think I have all of those bad beers still in there, except for the Fosters because we only had one can of it.
Yeah,
we all shared one can.
Right.
It was a big can, but we shared one can.
But speaking of the Super Bowl, very pleased with it. I was petty. I was rooting hard against. I was born in Philadelphia, and all my family are Eagle fans. I'm a Ravens fan, but I wasn't rooting for the Eagles, especially I was just rooting against them, against the Chiefs, and to see how bad they played was like the Eagles brought it. Like I'm not gonna take anything away from them. And there's the whole you have all the people on the internet talking about they didn't have the refs on their side this time and blah blah blah. First of all, there's no conspiracy. That wouldn't last.
No,
because someone would get fired or pissed off, or that would get leaked. Right, so put that to bed. Now, do I think it's known that the league protects its superstars?
Sure.
So they're not going to let Pat Mahomes take the same kind of hit that what was the guy for the Redskins, Chris Heineke or whatever that dude. You could pile drive that dude, whatever. Right. But Pat Mahomes, he's not taking that. Jalen Hurts isn't taking that hit. So yeah, there is a little bit of that. But it was nice to see them just not get calls. And I think a lot of it was them they would get a call. And everyone would see it and it's a terrible call. But some of those calls were bad.
I posted on Twitter, or someone said, is there a more unlikable player than Travis Kelce? And I said, absolutely not.
No.
And someone responded, well, he's not a murderer. Is that the bar? Because he didn't murder someone, he's likable?
Yeah.
No, he's a douchebag.
Oh, yeah.
He's the guy that just is arrogant as fuck.
Yeah.
And nobody likes an arrogant prick.
Yep.
Sorry.
And the thing is, so I was talking with an old hockey buddy of mine about Travis Kelce. It's he wouldn't exist in the NHL. Well, he would, but he'd be getting his ass beat. The next shift, someone will be out there. When he kicked Justin Tucker's helmet, okay, Tom Wilson's coming out next shift and he's going to pull your card. So you better bring it. But I think one of the things that kind of puts people against the Chiefs, well, number one, they're a dynasty and they're good. So that automatically goes against them.
I don't mind that, though.
I don't like dynasties. Dynasties are boring. And for a league that talks about parity and they have all these structures in place, salary caps and this and that for parity, the 11 of the past 20 Super Bowls have featured either the Chiefs or the Patriots.
Yeah.
So it's boring, right? Especially both those teams are on the AFC side. So like half the AFC is the Patriots and the Chiefs all the time. Baseball, if you look at baseball, which is, there's no salary caps, you have the Wild West, a lot more different teams are represented. People say the Yankees buy their championships.
Now it's the Dodgers.
But even with them, they haven't won as many as the Chiefs and Pats did over the same time period.
I'll say I don't like dynasties while they're happening, but I like the fact that they happen after the fact. Mm-hmm. Like the Bulls dynasty.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when it was happening, but I like the fact that I got to see it.
Yeah.
Because of how great that was. Same thing with the Patriots. I didn't like the Patriots when they were winning, but now that it's over, I like the fact that I saw greatness.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't know if I'm going to say the same thing with the Chiefs, though, because of how unlikable Kelsey is.
Yeah.
Mahomes isn't horrible, although someone posted a video on Instagram of how basically mimicking Pat Mahomes' movements and how unathletic he looks. He does the little shuffle trot.
And he walks weird.
Yeah, he walks funny.
And his head's too big for his body.
And he's got that stupid hand thing where he's got the single hand clap going on every time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, you look at him going, how the fuck is that guy, an NFL quarterback, being that unathletic looking? But he is. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, he probably is. But, I mean, it just doesn't, he doesn't have the look.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm still taking Brady in his prime over Mahomes in his prime.
You know what? I can't until Mahomes wins more Super Bowls than him. And don't get me wrong, Mahomes is in the conversation for greatest of all time. Mm. He's at least starting to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
Brady is it.
Yeah. But see, Brady did it with like 5'8" white guys as receivers,
which makes me like him even more.
Yeah.
Call me racist.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
It could have been 5'8" black guys. I'm just saying, like,
listen,
one of his
the Eagles had a white cornerback.
Yeah.
That got an interception and a pick six.
Yeah, which is great too.
We're back.
Yeah.
You know? We got one.
We're back in positions other than offensive line.
Yeah. We got one running back. Mm-hmm. And we got one cornerback.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're back in it, baby.
But like Brady won one with a dude that came out of Penn State lacrosse.
Yeah. Hogan. I think Hogan was his last name. Then he had Danny Amendola.
Yep. Who was drafted Amendola, I think, was drafted as a quarterback.
Probably.
Yeah.
Edelman was a quarterback too at Kent State, I think. Or one of those MAC schools. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm taking... And Brady beat Mahomes once.
Yeah.
Even though I think that argument's stupid because they're never on the field at the same time together.
Right.
So, it was always like Brady versus Manning. Like, they're not even on the same... They're not on the field again. It's different if you had, like, you know, Steph Curry versus LeBron James. Like, they're playing on the court at the same time together. Ovechkin versus Crosby. They're playing at the same... Like, they're on the ice together.
Yeah. There's the question now, though. So, Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl ring. Lamar Jackson does not.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make Jalen Hurts a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
And let me just throw something else out there. Dan Marino doesn't have any Super Bowl championships.
Right.
Trent Dilfer has one.
Right. Does that make Dilfer better than... Yeah, I don't go by the numbers of, you know, Super Bowls versus... there's too many factors going on.
But it has to factor in, I think.
Yeah, I think it does factor into a point. But, like, Dilfer has one.
Mm-hmm. Flacco has one.
Yeah.
Or does he have... No, he's got one.
He's got one. Who was the quarterback when the Ravens won the first time? Dilfer, okay. The defense won that Super Bowl.
Yep.
It had nothing to do with it. They could have had anybody there.
But he won it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll air quote, he won it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ray was actually the MVP of that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was one of the only times a quarterback didn't win the MVP. So, because I know they're going to use this against Lamar. And it's like anyone who watches the games doesn't think Jalen Hurts is better than Lamar Jackson.
Right.
It doesn't show up on film. However, when their careers are all said and done and they're not playing on Sundays to remind everybody. Mm-hmm. Like you and I watched Dan Marino. We watched Trent Dilfer.
Yeah.
We know Dan Marino is better than Trent Dilfer.
Yep.
But when we're dead and gone, are your kids and my kids going to think that Trent Dilfer was a better quarterback because he's got a Super Bowl?
Right.
And they may. But I guess in this regard, like, and it's not like Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback, so I don't want to make that comparison of Dilfer versus Hurts, you know, because that's not the real comparison. It's just that you've got some of these sports guys that think that unless you have a championship, you can't be considered the best.
Right.
So, and I don't know what the answer is. I tend to think you got to have one to be considered the best. Now, here's the thing. None of them other than Mahomes can touch Brady.
Right.
Because he's got so many.
Yeah.
What has he got, 6?
Mm-hmm. And he did it with 2 teams. So, like, he left New England.
Right.
And he kind of answered the Belichick-Brady question. Like, which one was it?
Yeah. I think that only solidified it more. Like, before, I think he still would have been considered the greatest.
Yeah.
But that just cemented it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is...
And then also, if you look at, like, you know, if Mahomes was as good as Brady, they were down, 22 points going into the half? Mm-hmm. So...
Are you talking about that Atlanta game?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you have that, too. Like, he couldn't bring it back. That entire team looked shell-shocked.
Yep.
And going back to Kelsey, who was always running his mouth, he wasn't saying shit. Like
he tried.
He tried when he dropped that pass. He tried to get up and that. I'm not sure who the player was. It's probably a safety or a corner. I'm gonna go with the corner because he was smaller. From the Eagles, just stood there with his hands behind his back, didn't push it, didn't engage him at all.
But see, nobody wants to see that shit.
Yeah. Like
when Mark Andrews makes catches and stuff, yeah, he does a little first down point, whatever.
Yeah.
But then he just goes back to the huddle.
Yeah.
He's not being a dick.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're a rich dude. You're successful.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a dick.
Right.
Like when he kicked Justin Tucker's helmet, you're being a dick.
Yeah.
When you're talking shit to a cornerback who's not even near your and you're getting in his face, you're a dick.
Yep.
It's and then like he goes on the podcast with his brother, and he's a dick.
He's a dick there too.
Like the guy's an asshole.
I've never listened to the podcast.
I did once or twice.
Yeah.
But he's that hard to listen to though.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have all of these good things going for you. You don't have to be an asshole too.
And here's the thing: you can play like an asshole. One of my favorite players, was Brian Dawkins. Played for the Eagles. I think was he a safety or a corner? Safety. Like, I'm convinced they kept him in a cage and didn't feed him, and would just like tease him with like a jersey of the other team soaked in blood. Like, but I love the guy. But other than outside, a quiet dude, not running his mouth, like but a bastard on the field. I'm cool with that. But like the whole running the mouth stuff, like be a hard hitting player, be a good, but like all that shit talking, like that's just it's.
Well, okay. Let's take like another person who used to do that was Warren Sapp. Mm-hmm. But Warren Sapp, like when you heard his mic'd up stuff, he was funny with it.
Oh yeah.
And like the other person was jawing back and forth, but he wasn't like getting up in the dude's face like he was going to actually try and do something.
Yeah.
About it. Like Kelsey looks like he's like trying to be the hard ass and he's going to fight you.
Yeah.
On a football field.
Yeah.
Like, dude, no.
He's a player like, hockey's my thing. Like Marchand from Boston, just runs his mouth, cheap, kind of dirty. I appreciate the type of player, and if I was a Bruins fan, I'd absolutely love him. But like when push comes to shove, like he's not throwing down. Mm-hmm. And I don't think if it was hockey, Kelsey wouldn't throw down. he'd probably put his hands up and try to draw a penalty rather than like, okay, well, like we're here, like we came to this point, drop the gloves. Yeah. It's time to go.
It's kind of like, and it doesn't help that Mahomes does all that extra acting, and he plays on a team with Mahomes. I swear, like that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people don't like Josh Allen, who seems to be like a really nice person.
Yeah.
But when he's on the field and he gets like a little bit bumped, he does the extra acting part of it.
Yeah.
Nobody likes it. One of the reasons why Americans don't like soccer is because of the acting.
The flops, yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, don't bring that into football. I get it. You're getting a flag.
Yeah.
You're trying to help your team win. I get that.
Yeah.
But you're hurting the football brand.
Yeah. Is there a flag for embellishment?
Yes, but they very rarely call it.
Yeah, because NHL, they call, like you take a dive, like it's a penalty. So
well, and they started doing that in soccer now too. Yeah. Now I haven't watched enough of it to know if they actually enforce it. Yeah. But
nor will I.
right. I don't plan on. I don't plan on doing that research. But yeah, they supposedly were trying to get it out of the game.
Yeah.
But he's just an unlikable dude. And it was like, and then like the Taylor Swift stuff, like,
well,
it just made. I understand why they panned to Taylor Swift because she brings eyeballs to the game.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old daughter knows about football because of her.
Yeah,
she still rooted against the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Good. She's a Taylor Swift fan and rooted against the Chiefs.
Good. Because she knows what's good for her.
That's right.
Because you can root for the Chiefs somewhere else.
Yeah. And so, I get, like, before it used to piss everyone off. It's like, look, man, you got to know where that bread's buttered.
Yeah. And here's the other thing is with Kansas, because I think all the unlikable stuff is kind of coalesced with them. Because other than that, Kansas City's a small market team. They were terrible for a long time. I like Andy Reid. They have all the stuff that I should be able to at least tolerate this team, but it's all the other stuff. The Kelsey being a dick, the milk toast stupid Jake from State Farm, Mahomes, Kelsey bromance commercials, Chris Collinsworth just gushing over Mahomes on every play. I almost want to watch the game on like Deportes, so I can't understand them sucking Mahomes off every play. Because at least it would be in Spanish, and I wouldn't, or I'd learn some new terms. But like they verbally fellate that guy it's like and the crazy commentators Instagram page where they're like, have you ever seen those guys like, all hail Lord Mahomes and all this stuff like, but that's so funny because it's so true. Like that's what he's doing. It's like, dude, shut up. Collinsworth is a dude. He did the same thing to Brady. I can't stand him.
He did the same thing with Rodgers for a while, too.
Yeah.
And I'm a Rodgers fan, though. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just the way he is, though.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. I do like when he does games. I don't know why. Like, outside of that, I do like hear. I don't know if it's his voice or what, but I do enjoy when Collinsworth is on a game outside of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just because he's got some enthusiasm for the game. Like, it's kind of like, I can't remember the guy who does hockey games. He does the playoff hockey games. And like, he is into it. Mm-hmm. Like he is thoroughly enjoying the game and his job. And it makes me like the game that much more.
Right.
Because he's announcing it. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could remember the dude's name. It's not Gary Thorne.
That's way back in the day.
Like if you heard it, you would know exactly who I'm talking about.
I think I know who you're talking about. I just can't place there.
Like when the guy when
they do the national games on ESPN.
Like when they have like shots on goal and it's just dude, you hear that. Like he's one of those guys where you could listen to him and not watch the game and you would not miss anything.
Yeah.
You would get all the emotion, the highlights, the lowlight. You would get all of it just by listening to that dude's voice.
Yeah.
Collinsworth is kind of that guy for me. I think football needs more of that. Now, if you had someone that could bring that kind of energy to a game without choking on someone down there, but that would be better.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did bring in, like, if they got, if the broadcast team got like talking points or like points that we want you to focus on these players. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Right.
Because that's kind of where the propaganda side comes in. Jock this guy. Our market research shows that when you talk about this player this much, people stay watching longer and all this crap. And these are the superstars. These who we want you to focus. Because really, these leagues are becoming star driven.
Sure.
It's not as bad as the NBA.
You can't make it like the NBA.
Yeah.
The NBA's ratings have gone way down since they started that movement.
Oh yeah.
And they started it after the Bulls run, when they feel like they didn't have a Jordan anymore.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the rivalries anymore. I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother episode about the NBA. Like, they don't put the city names on it anymore. It's all these, like...
Phila.
Yeah, or H-Town.
Yeah.
What the fuck is H-Town?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Is that Houston?
If I'm not from Houston, I don't know it's called H-Town.
Right.
Or Golden State does Dub City.
Yeah.
I don't know who Dub City is.
Is it a rim store?
Right.
I think there is a rim store around here called Dub City.
Probably. But here's the thing. Like, if I don't know who they're playing, I don't know if I like the team or not.
Yeah.
I don't know who the opponent is.
Yeah. Or where they had their nicknames on the back rather than their actual name.
Yeah, no. Fuck that shit. I'm sorry. I know it's for the kids.
Yeah.
Fuck the kids.
Yeah, it's to sell jerseys.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. If I can have 4 jerseys to sell, so someone will buy all 4.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do. It's why the MLB has the alternate jersey.
Yeah,
and NHL has the alternate jersey.
They have a ton of alternate jerseys, but the NBA, so I don't know. I know people who are fans of players, and of course, there's a bunch of LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant was the same way. And now Bryant only played for one team his entire career.
Right, but I was going to say that. At least he only played for one team.
Yeah, but LeBron has moved around because he was with what? He started with Cleveland, then went to Miami.
He got shit on for it too, though.
Yeah, and then went back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then now is in L.A.
Him going to L.A. for his brand, I think, was the worst move ever.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, it was probably the best thing for his brand because L.A. was where he started his production company.
Yeah.
Like, business-wise, it was probably great for him.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball-wise, probably the worst thing for him.
But now they have, your... but I remember when LeBron went to Miami, all of a sudden I started seeing all these Miami Heat flags. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody knew who the Miami Heat was. Right. Now he's there. Now there's all these... Oh, I'm a Miami Heat fan. You're a LeBron James fan.
All I know is for the last 10 years, the NBA ratings have gone down.
Yeah.
So, obviously, something is not happening that they need to happen. But they don't have a guy named Harry Balls.
No.
And that's what they need.
Yeah. Because Elon has Big Balls. So
is that what it was?
It's Big Balls.
So, I think then after Big Balls, Elon changed his Twitter handle to Harry Balls. But the fact that CNN was talking about it and the fact that they had to write Big Balls on the ticker was hysterical.
Yeah.
I think that alone is a win.
Yeah.
But, all right, we appreciate you listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. We want to thank Adam Chubbuck with Douglas Realty in Pasadena. That's tacmd.com, tacmd.com, tacmd.com. And we will see you next week.